about the identity, the privilege, about the white people in the current society, and this includes the African and even the Western world. Now, when people ask what it feels like to be white, they're really asking about the privilege, the identity, and how history has actually shaped the daily life of us all in the world. And the truth is, whiteness is often experienced as invisibility. Now, in society where whiteness is dominant, many white people don't wake up thinking about their race because their culture, media, and institution already affirm them as the default. That absence of racial burden is itself a form of privilege. Now, to be a white can feel like moving through the world without constantly questioning if your skin color will be used against you. It is being able to walk into a store without being followed, applying for a house without wondering if your application will be denied because of bias, or interact with police without immediate fear of violence. It is not about that white people do not struggle. Poverty, illness, and hardship affect all groups. But race is usually not the extra weight stacked on those struggles. So yes, whiteness is not neutral identity. It is a construct built historically through colonization, slavery, and even system of extension. Now, for some white people, realize this can bring discomfort, guilt, or even the denial. Others may feel defensive, insisting they don't see race or that they personally haven't benefited. But true awareness means recognizing that privilege doesn't erase personal struggles. It simply means those struggles weren't made harder because of race. Now, interesting, when white people live outside of majority white society, their experience can shift dramatically. Like suddenly they feel hyper visible, stereotyped, or associated with colonial history. That shows how much context shapes racial identity. Like whites feel normal when it's dormant, but unusual when it is not. In the end, being white feels less like having something extra and more like living without certain barriers that others face every day. Now, the challenge and opportunity is for white people to use that position not to deny privilege, but to break down the system that make privilege matter in the first place. Now, I'd also like to take you through the daily to daily activities that has always been experienced, and I want to break it down in certain perspective. Like when you look at everyday experience for white people in society where whiteness is the dominant group, like the US or much of Europe, you'll find that being white often feels normal or default. They don't usually think themselves in racial terms because the culture reflects them in media, like I said, leadership, and even the history as the standard. Now, this means that they're less likely to be judged, stereotyped, or profiled based on skin color. They can move through the world without worrying that their race will define how others treat them. For example, when a white person comes to Africa, automatically he'll be seen as a god. He'll be seen as someone who is a special. He'll also be praised because the country where he or she is coming from is automatically superior. This means that he will be given more respect than the black Americans when they come here to Africa. So privileges has always been one of the advantages the white people have always persevered, have always taken on. Now, being white often feels like having invisible advantage, like they don't notice until they are pointed out. Like for example, rarely wondering if you were denied a job, apartment, or loan because of your race. That is when you look at the European side. Seeing people who look like you widely represented in books, movies, politics, and even businesses. Now, for example, even in the movies that you watch, the white people are always given the privileges that they are portrayed as good people. Now, in certain movies also you'll find that the black people are always given certain characters which portray the bad characters of black Americans or of black people. For example, thief, unaliving, something like that. But these these characters which are always given to the black people always portray the bad side of black Americans, unlike the white race. So these aren't feelings of luxury. They feel like normal life, but compared to marginalized groups, they are privileges. Now, guilt and awareness or denial, like some feel guilt or discomfort once they become aware of systematic racism. And that's why you'll find that they try as much as possible to educate their fellow men and women of the systematic racism. Others feel defensive or deny privilege, insisting that their life wasn't easy either. Some embrace allyship, using their position to advocate for equality. Outside majority context, I would also like to say that in places where white people aren't the majority, like when you talk about Africa, talk about the Asia or the Caribbean, you'll find that being white can also feel very, very different. Like they might feel visible in a way that they aren't used to back at home. Now, their whiteness may come with as assumption of wealth. Like I said earlier, wealth, power, and even the colonial history. Instead of invisibility, they may feel hypervisible. So, to sum up this, being white often feels like living without race, being a daily barrier, but the awareness of whiteness changes depending on whether someone recognizes privilege or step into environments where whiteness is not the norm. So I like to say that however much we talk about the colonial system and what and whatever, I also like to say and agree with my other speakers who also say that however much we are talking about racism, however much we are talking about racial profiling, you also need to take into consideration that the things that the white people did to the black people were actually not them. Because I remember the last time even America was colonized was in the 1860s, 1760s, 1750s, there, 1700s. Let me assume there, and the black Americans were actually given an identity that is 1980s, 1990s. That's how they became available. They became a normal human being in America. Now, I want to say that the things they did are actually their great grandfathers and the people who are also. Let me talk about the slave and the slave owners. Now, the slave owners, I want to say and presume that they died long time ago. The slaves also died long time ago. So why can't we all of us live like human being, like stop seeing other person or judging people based on their color? However much we talk about this, then you will also find that it is always good to always see a human being as someone who is human, and you also become kind to someone, and not you don't only become kind based on race or the color of the person. You become kind based on the blood the person is having. Because I believe that however much you are having are white, you can be white, you can be red, you can be blue, you can be dark, but we are having the same eyes, almost the same eyes. The eyes are functioning, the nose are also there, the mouth, the hand, and even the blood. Apart from that, all of us in this world, no one has ever had a green blood. So can you take this and say that human race, we need to treat each other as human and not based on race? See you in another episode. My name is Wakakayus.